Hi everybody, welcome to the Site License and Internet Dongle Web-Based Registration Tools webinar. My name is Sean Burke. I'm the Senior Product Manager at Dongle Software today, and I will be guiding you through some of the web-based and user registration features for Internet Dongles and Site Licenses on the webinar today. So to get started, FCS Express, Internet Dongles, or Site Licenses have the ability to enable what we call a web-based registration system. And with the system enabled, as an admin, you'll be able to allow users to self-register via the Dongle Software website at a single click. You'll also be able to approve users at a single click via email without actually having to launch FCS Express. And you'll also be able to define custom institution names and email messages. So when folks do register and they begin configuring their licenses, it will be very clear what institution and what's going on for that. So in addition to the web-based registration system today, we're going to be covering how to register for a Dongle software account and what that means from an administrative and from a user's perspective. We'll be covering how to manually register users on your license. We'll be covering how to create them and how to manage them. And importantly, we will be covering the web-based user registration system, how to have users created, how to approve them, how to distribute licenses to your users as quickly and efficiently as possible. And we'll also be taking a look at the end in regards to usage and billing reports, which are more particularly important for folks who are using site licenses of FCS Express. So to get started today, we're going to talk about what it means to register for a Dongle software account. So with FCS Express 7, all users of FCS Express do have to have a Dongle software account. This is a free account that they can register for on our website. So you can see that we have the Dongle software website up here right now. And the easiest way to find the registration is to click on the login button. And when you click on the login button, you're going to see an option here for register today. So what you can do is you can send users to register on our website. I'm going to give you the information later on about, kind of a stock email message that you can send out to users to do this. But essentially they register just putting in their first name, last name, email address, and whatever password they'd like to choose. Now, one thing that's kind of important here is we recommend that all of your users do use their institutional email addresses. So use the email address that's coming from the university or from the company that you're working for. It's probably not best practice to use something like a Gmail or a Hotmail account here. There's a few different reasons for that. We don't limit it. However, as an administrator of the site license, when somebody writes you and they ask you, or you need to ask them, what is your Dongle software account? Most of the time, you're going to know that it's the email account that they're writing you from. So again, kind of very important to ask your users to make sure they do register with that, and they can come in and change that at any time as well. But once they register for an account, you can simply come in here and they can sign into their account on the Dongle software website. And I'm going to sign in here with an account I created earlier today. And what will happen is the user is going to be brought to our FCS Express customer resources page. So the other kind of nice thing about having users registered on the system or registered for a free Dongle software account is that when they log in, they're going to have a suite of kind of customer resources very quickly available to them. So if they need information about how to get started in FCS Express, how to install, all that information is here. Now, additionally, by having the free Dongle software account as a license administrator, you will not have to make any sort of changes to that username's account from FCS Express 7. So if a user has forgotten their password, if a user needs to change their password or view something about their account, they can log in, they can hover over the little icon up here with their initials and click on My Account. And by doing so, they're going to be brought to their My Account page where they can change their password, they can change their email addresses, the information associated with them, And also you as an administrator will have access to this with your de novo software account. So if you need to change your information, view your active licenses, download configuration files, all that information is available to you here. Now, very importantly, with version 7, your de novo software account is linked directly to FCS Express. So whatever account credentials you create on the website are going to be used to log in to FCS Express itself. And that is also going to go for any of your users. So whatever your de novo software account name is, if it's, in this case, Jane Smith at dns.com, that will be the login information. If you are the owner of the license, you will be able to log in with your email address that you used to create your account or to purchase FCS Express, and you'll be in there by default as an administrator. So again, it's very important that your users they get registered for the free account, and once they do so, we'll be able to kind of continue on with the registration process. So at this point, I want to talk about how to manage users, how to add users to site licenses or internet dongles, doing it manually at first, and then we're going to come back and talk about the online registration system. But to access any of the security or any of the user and the kind of license configuration options, you'll be clicking on the File tab, going into the Security category, and you'll be able to access one of two things here. One is going to be user administration, which we're going to talk about now, and the other is the edit security configuration that we'll talk about in just a few minutes. So when you click on user administration, what you're going to see is a list of all of the users that have been set up in your site license or your internet dongle currently. So as an admin, when you log in here as the first time, you're going to see your name in the list. Your name is in there because you're the owner of the license. Your name cannot be removed. However, again, if you'd like to change your password or your email address, you can do that from your de novo software account on the website. And the administrative tools here on kind of a manual level, changing and adding things are quite straightforward. So if you need to add a user, you can click on the Add button. And when you click on the Add button, it's going to prompt you to enter user information. So again, one of the important points here is that a de novo software account must be created for the user before you create their account. And once they do have their user set up, you can type in the email address. And again, this is another important reason to ask your users to actually create an account with their institutional email address, because if they write you and they say, I'd like to be added onto the site license or onto the internet dongle account, you can simply type in their email address and you'll be off and running. Now, once you put in their email address, you need to choose what type of group they're going to be part of. So for most users, they're going to be a standard user. And what a standard user means in FCS Express is that this user will be able to access FCS Express simply to perform data analysis. They'll be able to analyze their flow cytometry, their image cytometry data, whatever it is they may be doing that day. Now, the other type of group that they could be part of is an administrator. If they're a part of the administrator group, they'll be able to analyze data, but they'll also be able to access any of the administrative tools within FCS Express. So if you have shared administrators, if you have somebody in the core facility or the lab who's going to help administer your license, but they're also going to be performing data analysis, you can make them an administrator. Now, a third type of user that's in this list is called the user administrator. And what the user administrator role does is it only provides access to the administrative functions in FCS Express. So the kind of case for making a user like this is if you have somebody in the lab who's kind of an assistant who's helping manage and adding folks to your site license or to your FCS Express license, but they don't actually perform data analysis. They may not even be a scientist. You can assign them the user administrator role, and they can come in and they can add users. They can change the security configurations for the license, but they will not be allowed to perform data analysis. When they try to insert a plot to insert flow cytometry data, they'll be blocked at that point. And the important thing about this type of user is since they're not performing data analysis, if you own a site license, they will not be counted as a billable user. Of course, we would not charge you for somebody who can't perform data analysis. But again, in this case, I'm going to choose standard user. And what you're going to see is that when I add this user, the user information for first name and last name is going to be filled out. So the new user who's going to be coming in here is Joe Smith. And if we come in here and we edit Joe Smith, what you're going to see is the email address that we typed in has automatically been filled out, or it's kind of locked in there. We've pulled down this user's email address from our website, from their free De Novo software account. And again, all of that is being managed from the website as long as they have this free De Novo software account. Now, if I want to delete the user, and I want to do that in this case as well, I can click remove, and it's going to ask me if I want to remove the user, fcsexpress1@dns.com. I'll click yes, and the user will be removed from the site license or from the internet dongle, and they'll no longer be able to access the license. Now, additionally, there may be cases where you just want to temporarily remove a user. You may just want to block them. Perhaps they're a site license user who hasn't paid their annual bill. Maybe they've gone on leave and you want to make sure they're not using it at some other lab. Well, in that case, you don't necessarily have to delete the user. You can click on edit. And when you click on edit, you'll be able to come in and uncheck allow login. And if you uncheck allow login and you click OK or you click save here, the user name will still exist. They'll still be part of your license, but they will no longer be able to log into the license. And then if they need to come back and use it at some point later, they've rejoined the lab, they're up to date on their billing, you can choose allow login, and then they'll be able to access the software again. Additionally, one other functionality that's available in the Edit User Information section is the lab name. So this is kind of more important for billing reports down the line. If you want to kind of group people that are in a lab so you can generate a billing report, based on usage for that lab. Once the user is set up, and they're in the user administration list here, you can actually just type in a name. If you have lab names that you've already filled out, they're going to appear here when you drop this down. And that way, when we do any sort of billing report later, or you do a billing report later, you're going to be able to group them by the lab name. So again, this is some of the manual kind of registration, manual creation, manual management of users within FCS Express. So we're going to close out of this window, and we're going to discuss now some of the online self-registration tools. And the online self-registration tools are really great, especially if you're kind of a core facility manager or you're managing a license that's going to have lots and lots of users on it. Because what can happen is when somebody asks you to join the license, you can essentially send them one email, and the email will have a link to register for the site license. It will have all of the information that you want to provide them to download, install, and configure FCS Express. And from an administrator perspective, when that person tries to register, you will receive an email. That email will have a link in it, and you click on the link and it will approve the user for use on the site license. So again, the workflow there is if somebody likes to join the site license, you send them an email. When they decide to register for it, you will receive another email to approve that user, and then they'll be able to use it without any additional hassle on anybody's end. So the online registration tools are again available within the Security tab. And to access these, we want to click on Edit Security Configuration. So when we click on Edit Security Configuration, there's two options here that we're going to be focusing on, or two categories. So one is the general category, and this is going to be your institution name. So when you decided to purchase FCS Express, whatever institution name you provided as part of your billing or shipping address is going to be located here. Now, you can come in and change this. If you decided that, what you provided us at the time of purchasing, it should be something different. You could type in anything that you want here. We can type in any sort of information free form. And what this is going to do is when users go to configure FCS Express and they're prompted on their own which configuration file they'd like to use, they will see this institution name in there. So when they go and they try and pull down their configuration files, they will see Flow Cytometry Core Facility, and they will know that this is the configuration file they should be using. So additionally, what you'd want to set up for online registration is, of course, managed in what we call online registration. So by default, online registration is turned off, but if you would like to turn on online registration, you simply click the button here for Allow New Users to be registered through the De Novo software website. And this makes a web link available to you to use that you can distribute to your users. So by default, the web link is also going to have a sign-up code associated with it. And by default, it's going to be a long series of numbers and characters. But of course, you can change this. So if you'd like to change this to something more meaningful, to kind of shorten the URL, something that folks can also remember, you can type in anything you want. So if I type in FCS Express, I can now use this as my sign-up code. And what you're going to see is that you get a message that says, please close and reopen this frame for an updated URL. So what this means is essentially I need to close this window, and that's going to update the web link to use the new sign-up code that you provided. And when we go into the security tab and reopen this, you're going to see the updated web link. So now I have a new code or a new URL, and the sign-up code is equals FCS Express. So I'm going to put this in my clipboard because I'm going to use it later. But the idea here is when somebody wants to register for a De Novo software account, they're going to be able to click on that link, access the FCS Express site license, registration system for your particular license, and continue the self-registration process on their own. Now, additionally, there are some other options here. The one option that we recommend that all people implement is the require administrator confirmation. So what this does is if somebody tries to register for your site license using that URL, whoever's email address is listed here will get an email, and it will say that somebody wants to register for your site license. Click on the link provided, and that will approve the user. So you may be wondering, why would you not want to use this? Well, if you're using an internet dongle and you're not being charged for additional users because only one user can use it at a time, well, you might just not want to have to require administrator approval. Anybody can get signed up, but again, only one person is using it at a time. But if you are managing a site license and you could have tens or hundreds of users that are accessing the software, it's very good practice to require some sort of administrator approval to do this. Now, there is a second level of approval that can be enabled. If you check the box for new users must be confirmed by an approver, what will happen is when the user goes to register for the site license, they need to type in somebody's email to approve their user. And the use case here is if you have a PI who has, say, 30 people in their lab, and a lot of people need to be using FCS Express, and the PI wants to approve that user before it even goes to the site license administrator for additional approver. You can enable that, and it's a two-level kind of check for approving a user. In practice, not a lot of people are actually using this, and again, I would recommend to kind of get started, turn on allow new users to be registered, require administrator confirmation, put in some sort of email address for whoever is going to be approving these users, and you'll be all set. So what I want to do is set up some users using this system and show you how this works in practice. So I'm going to click OK, and that's going to enable this system. And as I mentioned in the beginning, a very good or a very common workflow for administrators of FCS Express is to have some sort of stock email. And this is an email. You can just keep it as a draft. You can have a Word document. You can host it on a website. And the email will look probably something like this. And what you're going to want to do is when somebody comes and they say, I would like to join the FCS Express site license, I would like to join your internet dongle FCS Express license, you can send them this message. And the message says, visit denovosoftware.com to register for a free Denovo software account. And in the first line here, it says, visit this URL code. And this URL is the one that we put together or that's provided within FCS Express. So what will happen is the first thing that the user is going to do is they're going to visit that URL, and we'll type that here in my web browser, and FCS Express is going to prompt them to log in, or the Denovo software website is going to prompt them to log in, and we'll log in with another user account I've created here for today. So when they log in, they're going to be brought to their My Account page, and they're also going to be prompted, and it's going to say that your site license account, FCS Express 1 at DNS.com, has been created, and it's waiting to be approved, and that you will receive an email when your account is ready for use. Now, what this looks like in FCS Express is that if we go now into the File tab, and we go into Security, and we click on User Administration, we're going to see that an account for FCS Express 1 at DNS.com, this person's name is Joe Smith, they are now in the system. So they're in here and they're waiting to be approved. And we know they're waiting to be approved because Allow Login has not been checked for this user yet. So again, what will be happening as an administrator, you're going to be getting an email to approve this user. But if for some reason you missed that email, if you deleted it, you could always come in again and manually approve a user at any time. But I'm going to go through the registration process one more time, and I'm going to get logged out from this user's account. And I'm going to log in as a different user's account, and we're going to show you the automatic registration. So I'm going to log in now as a new user, Sean.Burke at denovosoftware.com. And what we're going to see is that if you open your emails, and I'm going to open up an email that I just received, as the administrator, and whatever email address you had put into the administrator confirmation email, you're going to get this, and it's going to say Sean Burke wants to register a new FCS Express account. It's going to show you the name and the email address associated with this person, and it says to approve this registration, click this link. Now, the really great thing about this, as a site license administrator, wherever you're getting emails, you can click this link. So if you happen to be out of the office and somebody wants to register for an account and you're getting these emails on your phone, you can simply click that link. And what that's going to do, it's going to bring you to the Denovo software website. You don't have to be logged in to do this, and it's going to say that the administrator confirmation for Sean Burke is complete. Now, what this is going to do from within FCS Express now is that when we refresh this list, we go into the File, Security, User Administration, we're going to see now a user in here for Sean Burke. We can see that he's right here. And if we edit this user, because we've automatically approved that user via the web link, you can see that Allow Login is automatically enabled. So again, the workflow here is when somebody wants to register for the site license, you can send them the stock email that essentially has information about registering for their account, visiting the URL provided for your site license, and then some additional instructions, which I'm going to go through in a little bit more detail. Now, on the user's side, as soon as you approve that message, or as soon as you approve their account, they are also going to receive an email. And that email is going to say, thank you for registering for FCS Express. And it's going to say your account is now active. You can log in at any time with the password you created during registration. So again, it's a very seamless way of kind of putting all of this together for an administrator and for the users so that they can come in and do all of this registration on their own. And from an administrator's perspective, the administrator can approve their accounts and get going with this very quickly and easily. Now, I'm also going to make sure that my user here that I had approved before, I'm going to make sure that my user Joe Smith here is actually approved, because I'm going to show you what this looks like from an end user's perspective as well. So part of the instructions for asking folks to register for your site license are to download, install, and configure FCS Express. So some of the instructions that you do want to send them, you can send them a link to our website to download the software. You can ask them to install via the steps in the wizard to install the software. And then importantly, steps to configure the software. Now, if you had been using FCS Express 6, one thing that you needed to do is when a user registered for your license, you needed to send them the configuration file for your license, or you needed to host your configuration file somewhere that they could grab it. Now, one of the changes with FCS Express 7 is that when a user is registered for and associated with your site license, FCS Express knows that, and it will allow them to self-configure their FCS Express license. So I'm going to run FCS Express here, and I've removed the original configuration file so you can see what this looks like from an end user's perspective. So if Joe Smith is coming in here to configure their license, they can click to automatically configure through this wizard. They already have a de novo software account. And all that they do is they enter in their de novo software account credentials. And what's going to happen is they're going to be prompted to configure FCS Express. And you can see here that we have a license for the flow cytometry core. And again, if you remember, this is the name, the institution name that we typed in the general category in the edit security configuration section. So whatever information you put there, this is what's going to appear to the end user of your site license or your FCS Express license. They simply click next, they click finish, and FCS Express is going to launch up, and they'll be able to access and use the software without any sort of additional configuration file information. FCS Express is actually launching on my other screen right now, and it's prompting me to log in. All right. So again, it's a very kind of seamless workflow, moving from administrator to end user very quickly and easily. So I am going to get logged back in here as the administrator of this account, because I do want to cover some of the additional information for billing and usage reports. And again, billing and usage reports are an administrative only tool, so you do need to have user administrator or administrative rights to access these. So all of the billing and all of the usage reports are going to be available in the same location that we've been working in, and that's in the File tab, Security. And they're going to be in the Security category under the Reporting section. Now, there's a number of different types of reports that you can generate, but for today's webinar, we're going to focus on two. One is the full sessions report, and one is the billing report. So the full sessions report is essentially going to give you information about every login to FCS Express that's happened on your license within a certain defined time range. It's going to break it down by the first name, last name, who's logged in, login times. It's going to show you, how long they've been in the software. So if you're billing people by, usage, you could do that if you needed to. But what will happen is, importantly, with these full session reports and for billing reports, there's a filter criteria that's set up. And the time interval filter for these by default is the last 7 days. So if you're looking at your full sessions report and you say, oh wow, not a lot of people have been using FCS Express, make sure you go in and you change your filter criteria. So if you wanted to look at year-over-year usage, you change the from for the year before, you click OK, and that's going to update your report for all of the usage that's been going on in FCS Express for the past year. Now, additionally, these groups can be kind of further parsed out and grouped and organized in a few different ways. But one of the most common ways is you want to see who's been using FCS Express for a time period. I don't want to see that user FCS Express has logged in 3 times today. I want to just see how many times a user has logged in over the last year. So what you can do is group these things. And if you grab the login name or any of the column headers and you drag it here where it says drag a column header here to group by that column, it will group the information by that column. And I can see here that I've had 3 people log into FCS Express over this time range: Sean Burke, FCS Express 3, FCS Express 2, and these are the unique users that have logged into my system at least once over the last year. And if you want to take this information and export it to a text file, export it to Excel, into some other formats, you can simply click on those options to export, and it will put those out in a format that's easier for you to digest as an administrator for taking a look at that information. Now, additionally, if you're using a site license billing reports can be useful for you. And again, this is in the File tab, Security Reports. And the billing report is essentially going to break down any sort of usage based off of unique users and the quarters billed for those users. So in this case, again, there is a filter criteria, and the default filter criteria is the last 7 days. So if you want to look at quarterly usage, set the usage back for a few months, set it for whatever time range that you want to look at, and you'll be returned, the number of unique users on the system, how many quarters have been billed for them, or how many quarters of usage have actually been recorded. Now, importantly, if you remember when we set up the one user's account, I did have a lab name inputted, and that was Dr. Peabody's lab. And if you are inputting lab names when creating the users or after users self-register, going through and organizing them into labs, you can very easily see how many unique users and how many quarters have been billed, kind of grouping by the labs. So by default, there's no lab names associated with folks, and they will appear in the no lab name category, for the 2 users here that I haven't logged in with the lab name. But if you have indicated some sort of lab name, that information will appear, and you'll again be able to export this to XML, or to Excel files, to text files, whatever kind of format that you'd like to, that's available here. So with that, and to just recap a little bit of what we talked about today, is that with the web-based registration system, you can allow users to self-register through the Denovo software website by providing them the URL that's generated when you click on Allow Users to Self-Register. When you do that, you'll be able to approve users as an admin via a single click in an email, and you won't have to launch the software. And there's a number of kind of customizations that you can put in there for your institution names and email addresses. Now, additionally, if you'd like to have users use this, or if you'd like to have users, or you're going to be adding users to FCS Express, of course, they are going to have to register for their free Denovo software account on the Denovo software website at denovosoftware.com. Once they've done so, you can manually add them to the user list. You can send them the URL, they can self-register, and in any case, the creation and approval can all be managed there. And again, coming back around when you need to go in and look at, how many people have been using the software, who's been using it actively, who hasn't been using, you need to look at billing reports to get an idea of what your renewals are going to be like for a site license. You can access those security, those tools in the File tab, Security Reports section. So with that, we've covered most of the functionality for the site license and internet dongle registration systems. And if you have questions going forward for any of these tools, you can contact support at denovosoftware.com. Our team there will help you out. If you're not sure if users are able to register for the system, if they're having problems, you can email us directly there and we'll help you sort that out. We'll help your users kind of sort out that information. And again, support at denovosoftware.com. It's a really great resource, whether you have questions about the online registration system, you have questions about analyzing data, make sure to reach out to us there for any additional help. And again, thank you for attending the webinar today, and we'll stop and take some time to answer some questions that have come through.